Hi there, everybody. Welcome to 3 News Now. I'm Stephanie Haney. It's Monday, January 4th. This is the first episode of 3 News Now of 2021, and I am thrilled to say Happy Victory Monday to you. This is the first playoffs Victory Monday as a Cleveland Browns fan that I have experienced as an adult, because the last time the Cleveland Browns went to the playoffs was in 2002, and I was still in high school. So I hope you all are celebrating. If you are a Browns fan, long awaited, and it is a great day. So we'll get to more on that in a little bit. But first, there is never a dull moment when it comes to politics, particularly not this year. And today, 2 Democrats in the House of Representatives are calling for the FBI to investigate President Donald Trump after a recording was released of a bombshell phone call between the president and Georgia's Secretary of State. So today, Congressperson Ted Lieu of California and Congressperson Kathleen Rice of New York wrote a letter to the FBI Director Christopher Wray saying that they believe, quote, Trump engaged in solicitation of or conspiracy to commit a number of election crimes. We ask you to open an immediate criminal investigation into the president. Now, in this recording, which came out over the weekend from a government source, which was obtained by one of our affiliates here at WKYC, the president can be heard pressuring the Georgia Secretary of State to, quote, find enough votes to overturn Joe Biden's win in the state's presidential election. In the phone call, the president can be heard repeatedly discussing disproven claims of fraud and raising the prospect of a, quote, criminal offense if officials did not change the vote count, according to the recording of the conversation, which was released. The president can be heard on the call saying, quote, I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have because we won the state. Now, to give you some context there, Georgia counted its votes 3 times before certifying President-elect Joe Biden as the winner by 11,779 votes, according to the Georgia Secretary of State. And he told the president, President Trump, we've had several lawsuits and we've had to respond in court to the lawsuits and the contentions. We don't agree that you have won. Well, in the call, the president goes on to say, there's no way I lost Georgia. There's no way we won by hundreds of thousands of votes. And the Secretary of State in Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, responds and says, well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong. He continued to question the possibility that ballots in Fulton County were shredded and that Dominion is, quote, moving fast to get rid of their machinery. Dominion, is one of the companies that provided voting machinery. Ryan Germany, who oversees the legal functions for the Secretary of State's office, told the president that was not true. Now, Congresswoman-elect Carolyn Bourdeaux, a Democrat, said Donald Trump is trying to change the outcome of the presidential election by strong-arming and bullying our election officials into subverting our democracy. This is an outrage. Now, since the election and prior to the election, President Donald Trump has repeated a litany of baseless assertions of political corruptions, machine tampering, and mysterious votes that he claims are either appearing out of nowhere or disappearing in order to give Joe Biden the edge to do what President Trump says is steal the election, which has not been proven in any of these circumstances. People in the Trump administration have said that the election was secure, and that's including former U.S. Attorney General William Barr, who said the Justice Department had seen no evidence of widespread fraud to overturn Biden's margin of victory. Tied to that, coming up in Congress, this is the week where they will be certifying officially the Electoral College votes. And as of January 4th, nearly 140 Republican members of the House and a dozen senators have said they plan to object to the certification of the 2020 presidential election. However, one person who will not be doing that is Republican Senator Rob Portman. Portman said today, following the election, I supported the Trump campaign's right to pursue recounts and legal challenges. He went on to say, but after 2 months of recounts and legal challenges, not a single state recount changed a result, and of the dozens of lawsuits filed, not one found evidence of fraud or irregularities widespread enough to change the result of the election. So what Senator Portman is saying is that Congress should not obstruct the will of the people, and he will not challenge the January 6th election certification. Now, why is this even a conversation that we're having right now? Well, President-elect Joe Biden won the Electoral College with 306 votes. You need 270 to win. President Donald Trump got 232 votes. Now, On January 6th, which is Wednesday, Congress must formally count those votes as submitted by the states. So what will happen is there will be a joint session, which is provided over by Vice President Pence, and that'll start at 1 p.m. on Wednesday. Well, if anyone objects to that certification, then the chambers need to move to a short private session, and then there will have to be a vote on the record of who is in favor of the objection and who opposes the objection. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has urged Republicans not to object because doing so would put Republicans in an awkward position of either supporting a challenge that is all but certain to fail or not supporting a challenge and having to go on the record in that way. Now, if a senator does go along with a challenge, then each chamber will vote, and a simple majority is required to uphold an objection, and both chambers have to agree for an objection to succeed. It is virtually certain that that is not going to happen, especially for the fact that the House is in the control of Democrats right now. But again, what might happen is that Republican representatives and Republican senators will be forced to go on the record as either upholding election results or not, which could put people in a very sticky political situation as the Trump presidency winds down and we look toward the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden, which is happening on January 20th. Now let's turn to our latest COVID-19 numbers here in the state of Ohio. These are out from the Ohio Department of Health. Now remember, on Mondays, and especially after a holiday, these numbers do tend to be lower because of fewer reporting agencies over the weekend and over the holiday. But here are the numbers that we have for you today. In the last 24 hours, there have been 5,942 new reported cases of COVID-19, and our total number of cases now, dating all the way back to March 9th, is nearly 728,000 cases. Now, if you remember, on Thursday, December 31st, the last time we talked here on 3 News Now, we had just hit 700,000 COVID-19 cases here in Ohio. In the last 24 hours, there have been 64 more reported deaths related to COVID-19, bringing that total now to 9,143 people who have lost their lives tied to COVID-19. Taking a look at the positive rates of testing, this data comes from Saturday. For all of the tests conducted, the daily positive rate was 14% coming back positive, and the 7-day average was 15% coming back positive. There have been 314 new hospitalizations related to COVID in the last 24 hours, and right now there are 4,405 people in the hospital being treated for COVID-19. Out of those people, 1,073 of them are being treated in an intensive care unit, and we've seen 45 new ICU admissions in the last 24 hours. And when it comes to the number of available hospital beds across the state of Ohio, 30% of our hospital beds are now available for people that need them. Now let's check in on the national and the global COVID-19 numbers. These come from Johns Hopkins University. Across the U.S., there have now been 20,667,587 reported cases of COVID-19 and a total of 351,872 reported COVID-19 deaths. In the U.S., we have 4% of the global population, but we have 24.2% of the global cases, a percentage that continues to rise, and 19% of the global reported COVID-19 deaths. And globally, the total number of cases is now at 85,362,013, and the total number of deaths globally is now at 1,847,146. Now, as we start 2021, let's take a look at new laws going into effect this year. Just last week, Governor Mike DeWine signed a bill into law that would make abortion even more restrictive here in Ohio than it already is. Of course, there is a law that is being challenged right now, which we'll talk about in just a moment, but this law would require the burial of fetal remains in Ohio. These would be fetal remains from surgical abortions in Ohio, and it would require that they either be cremated or buried under the bill that was signed on Wednesday by Governor Mike DeWine. Now, this updates a previous state law that required that these tissues be disposed of in a, quote, humane manner, but humane was not further defined. So this law takes it a step further, and the decision of whether to bury or cremate this tissue is the decision of either the female patient or the clinic, and whoever fails to decide will be subject to a penalty. And the person who is responsible for paying for this is the pregnant woman who is seeking the abortion. She will be charged with the cost related to the final disposition of the tissues. Those who do not meet the requirements will be subject to a misdemeanor of the first degree. So that means up to 6 months in jail or a fine of up to $1,000. Now, of course, this is a controversial topic. Mike Gonadakis, who is the president of Ohio Right to Life, said that human life is precious and deserves to be both respected and protected. However, Laura Powell of Planned Parenthood Advocates of Ohio says that this is a familiar ploy by lawmakers, and it's something that is often done at the end of a legislative session, even though there is not widespread support for this kind of thing in the state of Ohio, and that people in the state of Ohio generally support access to abortion. Now, DeWine has consistently been supportive of restrictions on access to abortions. There is currently a law being challenged right now, the Heartbeat Bill, that prohibits abortions as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy. That's being challenged right now in court. And from a legal perspective, it is all but certain that this law will also be challenged in court. Other new laws taking effect in 2021. Ohio's minimum wage for employees is rising from $8.70 to $8.80 an hour, and the base pay for tipped employees is rising from $4.35 to $4.40 an hour. Also, when it comes to gun laws, Ohioans can now apply for and renew concealed carry permits at any sheriff's office in the state. Previously, it had to be done in a county where they lived or in the neighboring county to where they lived. And also, the new law extends expiration dates. You can check WKYC.com for the specific extension of those expiration dates. There's 2 different scenarios, so you may fall into one category or the other. Also, law enforcement officers can now seize any animal that they believe is a subject to animal cruelty, not just companion animals. And the legislation requires Humane Society agents to successfully complete training in order to serve. Now, let's move on to the Cleveland Browns' victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers yesterday, that 24-22 win, which put the Browns into the playoffs for the first time since 2002. The voice of the Browns, our own Jimmy Donovan, called the game, and it was an incredible call from him as it winded down. He talks about how the Browns will get their 11th win of the year. They'll go 11-5, and they're going to the playoffs, and how unbelievable it is, and what a season it's been. And at the end, he says, the only thing that's missing is all of you, because of course only 12,000 fans permitted in the stadium under Ohio Department of Health orders right now because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So you can listen to that full call from Jimmy Donovan. We've got that on WKYC.com. Now, something that will be missing from the playoffs, though, Cleveland Browns defensive end Olivier Vernon. He has a ruptured Achilles, so he will be out for the entire playoff run for the Cleveland Browns. He's been a key defensive player. He's been having his best season since 2013. In 14 games this season, he's had 9 sacks, including one on Sunday to put the Browns into the playoffs, and that's been his highest total since 2013. But head coach Kevin Stefanski says veteran defensive lineman Adrian Claiborne will see more playing time opposite star defensive end Myles Garrett with Vernon out. Of course, we wish Olivier Vernon a speedy recovery. Take care of yourself so that we can have you back for the start of next season. Now, let's talk about that game-winning, playoff-clinching play. Baker Mayfield slid for the first down to launch the Cleveland Browns into the playoffs. And Browns guard Joel Bitonio said on Monday that the name of the game-catching play was Maserati. So they might have been trolling Fox Sports announcer Colin Cowherd. Now, if you remember, this was pointed out by Eric Maroon on Twitter. Colin Cowherd called Mayfield a Mazda and not a Maserati previously. So he's been critical of Baker Mayfield. And here's what he said previously. He said, when you're a number 1 pick, I want you to be a Maserati, not a Mazda. Baker's a Mazda in the NFL. He looked overwhelmed physically. He doesn't have a great arm. So he said this about Baker Mayfield in 2008. So this is definitely the long game. If this is trolling Cowherd's comments about Baker Mayfield back in 2018, but it just seems a little too convenient for it not to be true. And we do know that Baker Mayfield is quick with those cultural references. So this would be the perfect level of petty if it is true. Of course, we don't know for sure because they haven't said, but seems pretty likely. Some more trolling going on too. The Cleveland Browns trolled Steelers wide receiver JuJu Smith-Schuster with his usual winning TikTok dance. JuJu Smith-Schuster has been doing that Corvette TikTok dance. Remember last week when the Steelers won over the Indianapolis Colts, They did it in the locker room with a ton of them with no masks on. Well, after the Browns beat the Steelers on Sunday, the Browns did the same dance in the locker room, but they did have their masks on. Just saying. And Smith-Schuster didn't get to do that dance because they didn't have a win last week. So another perfect example of the perfect level of petty coming out of the Cleveland Browns organization. And after that win, lots of people had strong reactions to the Browns going back to the playoffs. A couple of those people, LeBron James, saying playoff bound. Congrats, Browns. Yes, sir. Don't be satisfied, though. Talking about not being satisfied with just going to the playoffs. Want to see them move past that wild card round happening on Sunday. By the way, Sunday Night Football for the rematch against the Steelers. Love that right here on Channel 3. Cleveland native Drew Carey said, congratulations to all the high school seniors in Cleveland who've never seen the Browns in a playoff game. Finally got the cast off so we can scratch that itch. Man, this feels good. UFC heavyweight champ Stipe Miocic said, let's go Browns. Congratulations. So happy for you guys. And if you didn't know, Arsenio Hall is also a native of Cleveland. He said, my native Believe land clinch a wild card berth. Browns, first time since 2002, cardiac style, and then Arsenio Hall hashtagged it with woof, 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 which of course is the Arsenio Hall trademark and perfect for cheering on the Browns. And the Cleveland Browns themselves tweeted out photos of the team at the end, calling it the Factory of Happiness, which of course is a nod to that infamous YouTube video by our own Mike Polk Jr. calling it the Factory of Sadness. And Mike tweeted out in response to our Sarah Shookman that they more than earned it now being called the Factory of Happiness, which I couldn't agree more. And in all seriousness, you guys, I just wasn't ready for Browns football to end. It has really been a really positive thing throughout these past several months. We've had the ups, we've had the downs. It's been exciting. It's been good football to watch. It's been something to look forward to, and it's not over yet. Like I said, the wild card round between the Browns and the Steelers is happening this Sunday night football in prime time on Channel 3. That'll be at 8:15 p.m., so you can join us here for all of that. By the way, there's already playoff merch out there, so if you've already got some, I want to see it. At me, at _Stephanie Haney. Send it to me on Twitter and Instagram. I want to see what you're getting for your playoff swag, mostly because I need to figure out what I'm going to be getting for my playoff swag. That's it for your episode of 3 News Now, your very first update for 2021. I'll see you next up on What's New at 5 p.m. with your trending stories in the Clicking in Cleveland segment. We also have a poll, by the way. We want to see how far you think the Browns will go. So respond to that, leave me a comment, and you might just see it in the show. And I'll see you back here tomorrow for more 3 News Now. Everyone stay safe, be well, have a great afternoon, and happy playoff victory Monday. I'm Stephanie Haney.